right, we're back, and it is live to tape recording, as you've discovered being here.
Yeah.
So we don't cut anything out. We just roll with it, make it happen. Try to watch what we say, not insult anyone, of course. But we are back. We're in the between the Plies section. This is where we dig a little bit deeper. Talk to our guest about their start with drums and their start with drums. Sean's hand, I can't deal with it. They're getting into drumming. First off, I love that bass line influences. We'll start there. We'll work up to present day about what you're doing. But by all means, this is free form. So whatever you want to start with, I usually say first time you sat behind a kit is a good place to start, or first time you saw a drum, you're like, I want to do that.
Oh, man, I could do both, I think.
Okay.
So, well, back in grade school, the fourth grade was like the time when they were like, it's instrument time. And I didn't really know what I was going to do, but my aunt, she was just like, you're going to be a drummer. And I was like, okay, yeah, that sounds cool. But also, like, when I was 9 or 10 years old in 91, like the whole grunge music thing was happening, and like Metallica was still just massive, even though they still are. But like,
Yeah.
so like all of that new like hard rock stuff, MTV was still playing music. So like just glued to all that stuff all the time. And then so when school came around, it was snare drum. Just learning, Wharton Elementary School, snare drum for 2 years straight. No, didn't even touch a drum set.
Because school band didn't
That's it.
offer guitar, so you're like, hey, I'm going to play drums.
That's
Like
it.
watching my favorite rock bands on MTV.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, well, Lars plays drums.
Yeah.
I'm going for
Yeah.
that.
And so that was that. And then that kind of like goes into the first time I played drum set. It was, I think I went to Reynolds Middle School, or junior high as it was known then. And the music teacher was like, I don't have drummers. So when my friend Ian and I, when we were in 6th grade.
Is this Ian Fedorchik
It is.
of Falcon Jones fame?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah.
Shout out, Ian.
Shout out to Ian and the legendary band Falcon Jones here in Lancaster.
Yeah, so him and I, like, we grew up in school together, and, like, our music teacher was like, I need drummers for jazz band. So in 6th grade, him and I went to Reynolds, and the first time we sat behind a drum set, at least for me, I think, he was just like, okay, sit there. I'm like, okay. So he's like, now do kick and snare. And that's exactly what I did. And then his exact words were, now do a rock beat. And I intuitively, I guess I knew how to play it, and I just played a rock beat.
Yeah.
And then he was like, okay, now do kick and snare again, and now play the jazz beat. And that's like the first time I sat on a drum set. And then you just we just hammered it through that,
Yeah.
and just butchered it hard, I'm sure. China Grove, all day China Grove in jazz band in middle school.
Oh, yeah.
Doobie Brothers, China Grove. And then in Ian's basement, he had, as far as like first drum sets, he had, I think it was just a kick, a snare drum, a hi-hat, and then a mayonnaise bucket or two. And
Yep.
we didn't know anything about like how long a song was or anything like
Right.
that. So we're like, well, the average song on the radio is like 6.5 minutes. So we would just sit there and time each other playing rock beats for just 6.5 minutes each time. Arms
good
were
practice.
just on fire, burning.
Yep.
That's good practice, though.
And so that was kind of just like the beginning of the woodshed. And then when Drums Etc. moved to Queen Street, that's
Yep.
when I got the White Tama Rockstar Lars lookalike kit.
That's awesome. And it's great that you had each other to be able to, like, push each other.
It was awesome. Yeah, him and I, at least through middle school, I never wanted to wear like marching band gear, so I kind of stopped in school band after that. Although I really like that style of drumming. I think
Oh, yeah, for
it's
sure.
really cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, him and I like pushed each other through junior high and just kind of always played, and then we were in like coinciding bands and stuff.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And then you heard Metallica, and you ended up getting a Lars kit.
Yeah, one of the first tapes I bought, I think, when I was 9 or 8 was Injustice for All.
Yeah.
And I'm still listening to it today with just different ears. But yeah, so like the whole like hard rock and heavy metal thing, that was it for me.
I gotta agree with you there. That was my early inspiration too. Was Metallica, and my one of the first albums that I bought, other than like the recorded stuff that I had. Like I had the Black Album like dubbed, and then I went backwards. And I think the first Metallica album I ever bought was Ride the Lightning, because I had already had some of the ones that were dubbed, like I said, but the one I went out and got, like,
That was it.
Ride the Lightning.
Yep. Spent your own hard-earned
It was
money
a
on
tape. Oh, and then the tape broke, and I fixed it.
Yeah.
But I put it back in backwards so that it played backwards.
I was just like
Oh, wow.
saving batteries on my Walkman in school and
still remember that.
rewinding the tapes with a pen. Did you ever do that?
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah. But like, so yeah, definitely like, and Lars I think was just a massive influence for me as a kid. And I know people like drum nerds give him flack, but Lars, crank it all the way up. Lars.
I agree.
Lars is cranked up. Add it to the list.
I agree.
Hall of Fame. Too.
I'll say this.
And Hall of Fame. Let's
We
go,
were-
Lars.
Yeah.
Every segment. Quick question, Lars.
Yeah, we could put the Lars Ulrich drumsticks in the Hall of Fame. We certainly could do that at some
Good.
point.
Oh yeah, he definitely.
For
I
sure.
bought those the A-head sticks back in the
Yep.
day because of Lars.
Right. We had a drum clinic, the Meinl Common Thread Drum Tour, years ago at the old shop, and it was Mike Johnston. It was
Lars.
was it Lars?
Not
But
Lars,
Lars is
definitely
going to
not
get
Lars.
mentioned here, and I'm sorry, the JP. The other names are escaping me just for now.
Yeah.
But Mike Johnson, who's an educator, we were all sitting around talking, and someone had mentioned something about how Lars isn't a great drummer or something, and he shut him down.
Good.
Yeah, Johnson shut him down. He said, "Look, without drummers like Lars inspiring people to pick up the drums, we don't have this drumming community." You know?
Absolutely.
And Lars Ulrich has sold millions upon millions of records. So that in and of itself, you need to tell me that he has this guy here has played numerous tours, recordings,
Right.
sold all these records, and he's not a great drummer. He's
outta
an
here.
awesome drummer.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and I think like just like thinking of like iconic drum parts, I got like listening to the double bass thing in One.
Right.
And that was just like, whoa, what is he doing? I didn't even know it was humanly possible to play that fast.
Right.
And then like things like Dave Grohl's intro to like Smells Like Teen Spirit, like that kind of just like musicality of like, and the New York band Helmet was like a big one for me back in the day too, because that drummer John Stanier just writes. They all have these parts that are like super musical that, like I've been on tour where a drummer's playing the one beat and I'm like, oh yeah, you know that song, and it's like you can just from drums only, you can play One and everybody knows it's Metallica. You can do the intro to Smells Like Teen
Absolutely.
Spirit. You can do certain Helmet drum beats and
And you know immediately what it is.
Absolutely.
They're iconic.
yeah, I mean like Rosanna Shuffle and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Like these are just like drum parts
Yeah.
that, and all of them have influenced me throughout the years.
And they're so iconic that even non-drummers will call you out on it. You start playing like essentially that shuffle or something, or like the beginning of Smells Like everyone's gonna be like, oh, and you're literally just playing drums. There's no like other melody or anything going on with it. It can make or break a song. We talked a little bit about how drummers aren't necessarily credited, like for like songwriting purposes and stuff like that. And I'm not saying that every drum part is like insanely instrumental and like game changing for the song. Sometimes you just kick it and that's what the song calls for. It's cool. But then there are other times where you're like, man, this is the opening lick that everyone recognizes. This drummer should be like,
This is a drum song.
yeah, exactly. It's that integral.
And I think too, and this goes into like a little of another subject, but with Lars and Metallica, like he's one of the key arrangers of that band.
Yeah.
So he's like the dude listening and like pulling riffs and like putting stuff together and like I don't know if that directly influenced me or not, but whenever I'm playing with other people, and guitar players especially, it's like I love everything you're doing. Now I'm just trying to like maybe make it cooler in my head and seeing where we can accent things and like helping with the arrangement. And I think a lot of drummers like obviously there's times when it's not necessary. You're playing the backbeat and that's awesome. But like I think it's really important to like take that information and then contribute without just playing, a beat and not saying
Absolutely.
anything.
Yeah, and you know what's funny? I had and this was VHS, A Year and a Half in the Life of Metallica. Have you ever seen that? I'm sure you have.
Yep.
And Lars he does that a lot in that when they're writing the songs. He's like, play this, but extend it one measure. I'm trying to do my Lars impression, but extend it one measure forward. And he has a funny way of explaining things, and I do it to this day. I was just practicing with my band on Sunday, my original band, and we were coming up with a song, and I said, no. I was like, you should drop out. When I'm hitting the cowbell, you shouldn't be playing. I was like, that should be that part. Sing over that, his mind just lit up. He's like, oh my God, yeah, you're right. And I was like, and then once we go to the crash cymbal, I'm playing the same beat but only on the crash. That's when you kick in with the guitar. It's going to mean more than you playing it. You can't hear the cowbell.
Yep.
You know,
and it's all tension and release, and there is that flow. And from the drummer's perspective, from our perspective, I could say, it's you are thinking differently. You're focusing on different things in the room, so you can see something or hear something, I should say, that might be hidden when you're focusing on other things. It's so important to be that collaborative thing. That's awesome. So, did you find other Metallica fans and start bands? How'd you get started actually playing, like outside of school bands, but like in rock bands and stuff like that?
Yeah, so my brother he's 4 years older than me. He played guitar at a certain point. He started in the school band same way I did, played trumpet. And then when he was like 14, 15 or 16, he started playing guitar. And then him and I just started hashing it out in the basement together.
Yeah.
And then we were in a couple bands. We would play, fire halls and punk places in New York. And what was the crazy? We'd like Googlersville or Gouglersville. I don't know how to say it yet still. And all over. So we would just kind of do that. And then I just started getting with another group of friends. And then we would play all over the place. And it kind of extended to Philly, DC, Baltimore, sometimes Pittsburgh, and all over here as well. And just like booking our own DIY like punk shows. And then after that band, I was in this metal band.
Wait, we need band names. I love band names, especially when they're bad.
This is really bad.
Okay,
Ready?
bring it on.
Brother's band name and mine. Oh, wait, no, there was two different versions. One was the classic, we opened a dictionary and pointed to a word, and that was the band name.
Yep.
Whoa, what was it?
Wilson's Warbler. It's a type of bird, which we obviously learned at that very moment.
Awesome.
And then
Great.
Then it switched into 69 cents, which was SENSE, because we were very clever as teenagers.
Very clever.
And then I was in this like thrash punk band where we only sang about skateboarding called Race to Die. Which was funny because at that time Ian was in
great names. I don't understand. Horrible. These are great band names.
So I was in this thrash punk band where we're playing 17 to 45-second songs, and then Ian at the same time that's when he was doing Falcon Jones.
Yeah.
So we had this insane like dichotomy of
You guys couldn't play together.
Never played a show together, unfortunately.
Definitely two different vibes. But so you and Ian weren't in a band together though, right?
No, it's hard to start other bands with drummers.
Yeah,
I would love to start a band with you guys, but you know. The only thing I'm good at is drums.
Yeah, me too. I can't play any other instrument.
I know. I'm trying to expand, but
yeah. And then locally, after Race to Die, I was in this heavy metal band in Lancaster called Dark Black, and that was awesome. Another 3-piece heavy metal band, and then second band practice. We didn't even think about names, and then Tim, our bass player, he just said, "Hey, I was talking to my friends about starting this new band, and one of them said we should call it Dark Black." And I was like, "Oh, that's perfect." And we never thought about it.
It's
again.
funny. I chuckle.
it's awesome.
Because but it's an awesome band name. And if that was your band name right now, I wouldn't even bat an eye at it. You're like, I'm in Dark Black. I'm like, cool.
It was cool.
But the fact that this was a former band name of like 20 some odd years ago, it's funny. It just sounds funny.
Groundbreaking band name. We did black on black T-shirts, which were awesome looking. Highly recommend that. And then from there, that's when I moved to LA after that. And then,
well, hey, can we, before you get to the LA thing?
Yeah, Dark Black.
Dark Black. No. We're going to skip ahead because there was a time where you taught at Drums Etc.
Oh, this is very true.
Before you went to LA.
I
can't wait to get into this LA stuff, but I want to hear about this because I know that you taught there, but I'm like, it's kind of a haze. It wasn't.
It was like, unfortunately, shorter lived than I'd like. I was teaching briefly. I mean, at 21 years old, like I knew everything for some reason, and I was teaching over at whatever it was, Fred's Music on Roseville Road, and I was like, no dissing to Fred's, but I was like, this kind of sucks for me. So I had asked Travis at that time, who was working at Drums Etc., and I was like, dude, and he was like, hey, you can have whatever Wednesdays at 2 or whatever time. It
Yeah.
wasn't 2, but
Yeah.
so I started teaching at Drums Etc. and talked to Rick Hamilton for a hot second. I think his hair was short at this point. Like, it was like maybe one of the first times, maybe not.
Now he cut his hair in the mid '90s.
That was the Queen Street store.
Yeah, he cut his hair long before New Holland Avenue.
So yeah, there was the New Holland Ave store, and I taught in. I think I just taught in the downstairs room that was on the side,
Yeah.
like in between the
Yep.
cymbal room. I think
Okay.
there was a
Yep.
room there.
Yep, absolutely.
And I had like 4 or 5 students, and then it was great. I mean, in between lessons, you would just come outside and like watch drum videos and shoot the breeze with everybody. And then it was I went to it's Dom Famulero Drum Clinic there.
Yeah,
which
this was 2005. Okay,
it was awesome.
Yeah.
And at that point, I had already had my mindset on like moving to LA, and then I had was super inspired by Dom Famulero, and his clinic was. He didn't even play that much, which wasn't a bad thing. It was just so interesting to listen to.
So inspiring, right?
Absolutely.
His autograph and picture is still hanging up in my drum room today.
Yeah, rightfully so.
Yeah, he's still hanging up.
And then it was soon after that, short after that, that I had moved. I moved to LA.
Okay, it's funny. Now that you said your day was Wednesday, and I'm like, how I knew that you taught at drums. I had Wednesdays off for the longest time.
Oh, okay. Then it's definitely
that's why I don't
Wednesday.
remember you very much being around. I knew that you taught there, but I'm like,
It wasn't that he wasn't around; it's that you weren't around.
I had off Wednesday. I never worked Wednesdays.
No,
for the
I did
longest
everything
time.
at Drums Etc. on Wednesdays.
Yeah,
I did a lot. I was
why.
manager. I did a lot of ordering.
that's why everything was screwed up. I get it now.
You come in Thursday. What happened?
What's going on here? It's all making sense. So that's awesome. So you were very inspired by that drum clinic by Don Famulero, as was I. So I thought it was awesome, tremendous, and he didn't do a lot of playing because when he did play, it meant something. He just talked about playing drums.
Tons of context.
Yeah, it was just so great. We had that on tape. I wish we still had it. I would love to watch that again. But Don Famulero, I think, has a number of videos out there on YouTube of drum clinics that have been uploaded that people have put up on YouTube.
He has that YouTube show where he interviews people as well, I think.
right.
It's like a long form. I forget the title of
Yeah,
it.
he's real tight with.
we ought to get him on.
He's tight with Dom. Come on the show, Drum Key. No, he's tight with Mapex and Sabian, so he does a lot with both their educational outreaches and stuff. It's very cool.
And we always talk about NAMM.
Yeah.
I do have a Don Famulero story.
Hit me
NAMM.
with it.
Yeah. So again, I'm out at NAMM.
Yeah.
And this is in California, and I see Don Famulero there, and I'm like, this is now probably 7 years removed since the drum clinic. He's not going to remember me, but I'm
Right.
going to go up and say hi to him. I couldn't. He was just surrounded by people.
He's
Like,
got
you
a lot of
couldn't-
love.
Like everyone was just around this guy because he radiates that positive energy, and there's this aura about him. And I stood there waiting. I was just to say thanks, just say, hey man, you did a drum clinic, drums, etc., and let him pretend like he remembers me. Oh yeah, Sean, what's going on, buddy? Good to see you.
Yeah.
But my moment never came, so I just walked off. But I saw him. It was at the Sabian booth. Or Sabian. It's
NAMM.
more than a booth. Oh my God, it's a
Sabian.
Yeah,
Sabian,
NAMM's insane.
Section.
Sabian
You been to
section.
the show?
I went 1 or 2 or 3 times when I lived in LA.
Oh yeah.
I once was at the I was at the Tama booth, and Simon Phillips was standing next to me. I didn't get scared. I got really nervous. I couldn't say anything. And at that point, I was in a band and touring, and I was kind of used to meeting certain people of certain statures and stuff like that. And I wigged out. I just kind of turned around and left.
Yeah.
I wish I would have said something. No, I love Simon Phillips, but yeah, I kind of got. I think there was another Tama type heavy hitter there too. And I forget who it was, but I know Simon Phillips was right there, and then I just about faced and split.
You're not alone. I don't know if you listened to our pop-in episode we did yet, but
Not yet.
Okay, you got to listen to it because we talk about this a lot. Basically, we just start sharing embarrassing stories and stories where we met something. I screwed up a meet and greet with Peter Erskine, and not just a meet and greet. I really messed up. This is just regret in my face right now. I really messed up the chance with him and other artists and stuff. And Tyler from Hal Leonard, which is one of our distributors we get stuff from, was here, and he was telling stories about different people. We told a story about Will Calhoun coming in the store, and like no one said anything to him.
Oh my God.
We have horror stories, so you definitely have to check that out. But
Yeah.
it's really funny. Everyone, check it out. Check out our Poppin' episode with Tyler Bartelt from Hal Leonard. So you're moving out there.
Yeah.
Did you have a band and you're like, we're all going and we're going to, or you just moved yourself?
I was in Dark Black, but those guys were like, we're moving to Portland, Oregon. And I was like, oh man, I really just don't want to move to Portland, which I really do love Portland, Oregon. I almost regret not going just because it's really cool up there. And so I ended up moving to LA, and I didn't have a band, but I knew at that time Craigslist was still a thing. So I knew just by looking on like Craigslist that I can do something here and I can just try. So, and I think I immediately just went that route, whether it was looking for certain bands or putting out my own stuff. And, you know, the cool thing was whatever you put out, people would respond, and, you know, you had actual like people to weed out, you know what I mean? Be
Right.
like, oh, that's not a good fit. This person totally gets it. Let me see what happens. And so I just kind of was in a couple bands there, some rock bands, and we, you know, that's kind of where I started touring at the super lightest. I did this one. Here's a crazy gig. So I was in LA and I was working, and a band dude calls us and says, "Hey, we got a show on Saturday." I'm like, "Oh, that's awesome." And I'm scheduled to work all week, of course. And he's like, "It's in Austin, Texas." And we're in LA. I'm like, that's like 24-hour drive.
Yeah.
And but it was like, it's for this whatever, and there was a contest, and we won it, and we're opening, and it wasn't even like a South by Southwest thing. It was like a post party for the film fest that takes place, I think, right around the same time. And none of us were even 21, so none of us could even rent a car. So the dude's girlfriend, who was like 24, which was the magical number, she rented us a van, got the shifts covered, and like sure enough, whatever, we just packed up and went out to Austin, Texas, played one scheduled show, and then literally walked around the sort of Congress 4th Street area, that kind of downtown area, and like we found 2 more shows to play the next day.
Nice.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Hey, I have to go back to the I just moved to LA thing, because it just freaking blows my mind that you like, you know what, you just made this decision to go, I'm going to go move to LA, because that is such, like, everyone has thought that.
Yeah.
Everyone has thought that, or just move somewhere. But did you have like a contact out there, or someone to stay with, or something like that? Because just to go like, hey, I'm going to move to LA, and just packing up your car and driving across the country is...
At that time, like, before she had moved, I was kind of seeing somebody, and then she moved out there first, and I didn't really have any plans to be like, let's go, I'm going to move here, and we'll be together forever, and blah, blah, blah. And, like, I just kind of was like, I'll go, I'll check it out, I'll try it, we'll try this thing, and then at least I have a place to land, which is actually, you know, is a good point, because I think if I didn't have that person, I didn't have a place, you know, it would have been... I don't know if I would have done it, man.
Yeah.
Like,
it
made it easier to be like, okay, I'm going to LA and I'm going to this address, and I know as soon as I get there, I have a place to stay. Shipped my drums from Drums Etc. as well.
Oh, wow.
Nice.
That's awesome.
I think both. I shipped I have a 7-piece kit, the same kit I play now, and I shipped a 4-piece just to have something. But yeah, having a place to land was massive. I mean, you know, it was literally, I had never even left living at my parents' house. I was like 22, 23-ish. And this was like, hey, Mom and Dad, I'm moving out.
Yeah.
Whoa.
And I'm moving to the other side of the country. So I did that. And yeah, it was wild. I mean, it's kind of funny because I moved back to Lancaster. I was gone maybe a total of like 15 years. But I don't know if you can vouch for this or what your experiences were, but like 20 years ago, like Lancaster didn't have as much going on as it does now.
Yeah, I can vouch for that.
You know, there was one club, the Chameleon, and if you played upstairs or downstairs, that seemed to be kind of it, unless it, you know, was a...
I think there was kind of like a boom period in the 90s. Like the 90s, I think were pretty happening as far as like there was a really good local scene.
Yeah, totally.
And everything else. And then after the Chameleon Club, I think, switched owners, and after the 2000s, it kind of went downhill. Like mid 2000s,
Just less places to play,
I
but
think
still the
so.
same amount of bands.
Yeah, and I also just kind of
and there was like I think like a certain musical vibe. You know, you were talking about the grunge movement of the early '90s and things like that, and we were still kind of on the tail of that. So there was some focus, and then all of a sudden there was no direction as far as what the music sounded like. Or
no, you're totally right. The
You know what I
early
mean?
mid '90s like Lancaster scene had a lot of really cool bands that
Yeah.
I literally was talking to a friend about it the other night, and we were just like nerding out on all these bands. We're like, oh my god, that person and that person,
Right.
and but yeah, like I was 21. I probably had I definitely had a way bigger head than I do now, and like I just kind of felt like I had outgrown Lancaster a little bit. And that's kind of was one of the factors of moving out. Was playing with Ant and Tim and Dark Black, and he was an awesome guitar player, and he still is. And like at that point, I was like, I'm not gonna find anybody else to play like this, and
Yeah.
I just had to go and that's the definition of insanity. You're just gonna do the same thing. You're
Right.
gonna expect different
All
results.
it takes is a woman on the West Coast.
It's always a woman.
A place to
I
land.
knew it was a woman. I was just trying to get you there. I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm like, you had to have a place
How?
to go.
Yeah.
Because
What,
then
what
then
pushed you over the? Everyone
go-
gets close, but what pushed you over the edge?
you can get there.
Yeah.
Like, here's my home base. Now you can go apply for a job for some money.
Got a
Yeah.
place
Start
to ship
playing
your
on the
drums.
weekends. Got a place to
All
ship
of
your
that
drums.
stuff. Yeah. Yeah. So it was. I
Any
mean, it
drum
was
shops out there?
Pro Drums right
Yeah, that's
there,
it.
Hollywood.
Yeah.
It was awesome. That another place you'd go into and just be like, wait a minute, the dude from the Tonight Show, Marvin Smitty Smith, was just like right there,
Yeah.
just like
Yeah.
nerding out, just like anybody that comes into the store. And it's like, it's cool to see those like heavy hitter guys that are just like they're still nerds,
Oh yeah.
and they still do. Their Instagram is just full of heavy hitters just playing stuff, but.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're there.
Yeah.
They had Buddy Rich's either last or one of his kits just right there. It's like, there it is.
Wow.
That's Buddy Rich's kit. And so I would go there. I reached out to them when I was taking drum lessons, and they hit me up with like 20 people, and really cool shop. And then there was another shop. Obviously, there was Guitar Center, and I think there was a Sam Ash. When I first moved there was still like a lot more of those boutique guitar shops, which is cool. But there was a drum shop in North Hollywood or Burbank that was owned either by the drummer of that band 311 or his
Chad Sexton.
Yeah. Oh, right, because it was called Chad Sexton's Drum City or something like that.
There it is, folks. I
And,
don't know. We'll have to confirm that later. It might be
Yeah.
a different chat section.
But his brother and like his mom ran the shop, and that guy was always super nice as well. And I'd go in and be like, dude, I'm sorry, but I have to ask an opinion about this or that. I keep busting this. And he, it was the same thing. Quick question. A 5-minute visit turned into an hour every time. And that guy,
Yeah.
I was like, I'm so sorry. I'm just talking shop. And he's like, I love it.
Yeah,
So
we love it.
that guy was cool. But yeah, the drum shops out there, that was kind of all I maybe checked out a lot. So yeah. And then, yeah, I would just hit up Craigslist, be in bands and bands and bands.
How many bands were you playing in
Oh,
at any
man.
given time?
I think before I landed in Huntress, I was in a Ramones tribute band, a Sex Pistols tribute band, a band that played at the Cat Club once a month on the third Thursday or something like that. I was in this band called Van Stone for a second, which is like a silly comedy band. I think that might have been at the same time. So when I joined Huntress, I was like, oh, this is it. And then I kind of quit all those other bands. But I was in 2 tribute bands and then a couple other bands that I was like, I can't.
When you were doing the Ramones tribute band, did you guys dress like the Ramones?
Oh, yeah. I
Nice.
got a wig. I bought a wig and I went to some hairdresser in like Toluca Lake or something like that. And I had her just, here's a picture of Marky, go.
Yep.
And that's what I did. And that band was awesome. I loved it. Me and this singer guy were like mega Ramones nerds. And we're like, if we're going to do this band, it's going to be like this. We're going to do it like the Ramones did it. And we did the best of our ability with what we could get and do to make it. So we're like stringing songs together, playing a little bit more up tempo. But that was hard, just doing straight, fast eighth notes
can't
for like an
imagine.
hour and
Yeah.
15 minutes.
I can't imagine.
Ramones is one of those bands that kind of changed it for me. When I was working at ABG, and I was big time into the metal stuff, like Metallica and Megadeth, still into the thrash stuff. You know,
What's ABG? Is that
American Bar and Grill.
Oh, okay. I thought that's what it was. I was
worked
going to
in
say
American-
like,
A-Bag.
A bag,
American
yeah.
Bar.
Okay,
I worked
okay,
at
I got
American
it.
Bar and Grill when I was in high school,
Nice.
and I remember finding this box of tapes, and the Ramones were there, and I knew of them. And I put that in, and I was like hooked.
That's it.
From there on out, I was like hooked on the Ramones for like the longest time. I still am, and that's what changed it for me as far as like then I wanted to play that style of music, and
Nice.
I got more into that.
all these years later, that particular tribute band is still playing shows in
Nice.
LA and around and all that stuff. They're awesome.
So you did that,
Mhm.
and the Sex Pistols tribute band.
Yeah.
So you have one record to pull from.
Yeah. I think I ended up quitting that one. So maybe by the time I joined Hunters, that was like only 2 or 3 simultaneous bands.
Yeah. But then that kind of like established, you're like, okay, this is gonna be consistent enough. It'll make me some money. It's working. I enjoy it.
Yeah, the cool thing about the tribute band is you can just be like, well, none of us are going to leave the house unless this is the guarantee. And that's kind of what we did. And that was cool. I mean, it's definitely awesome when you're like, oh man, I just made $75. I can pay my cell phone bill. Like that's
Yeah.
like one thing. And you're like, this is it. I'm a professional musician. I got a drink ticket and a half, you know? And so yeah, doing the tribute band thing. Sorry, I don't know what else?
We're just talking about like how many bands you were playing in, and like gearing up for like because you've done like tours.
Yeah, we did some
I've
big,
never
pretty
done a
big
tour.
tours.
I
Like
just want to hear about that.
right. So the funny thing is, and this is where you never know when a door closes of what's going to open, because like I was playing in this band. I think they called themselves Gypsy Hawk, and they actually put a couple albums out. And I like started this band with this guy kind of in the initial phases, and in one of the practice afterwards, he just called me and we're just like, "No, you're not the guy." And I was just like, "What the heck, man?" And then I like literally at 2 a.m. drove to the rehearsal studio, picked up my gear, and then just like left. And I was like, "Fine, if I'm out, I'm going right now." So, and I was like really pissed off at that guy for a minute, and then fast forward a couple months or something, and he said, or maybe he called me, and I was just like, "Hey, what?" I was being super tough guy, and
What do you want?
yeah, what? And so he was like, "Hey, do you know?" And he was like kind of living at this house, which some of the Huntress guys were living at.
Hey, do you know any good drummers? Like,
Hey, do you got any drummer recommendations? So he calls me. He's like, "Hey, their drummer quit, and I think he's gonna call you." And that's sure enough exactly what happened. The dude who kicked me out of his band gave my info to the dude in Huntress, essentially Blake, who I think initially he called me and. I also did another tour. Sorry, before I was in Huntress, I kind of joined this punk band that did this this crazy U.S. tour, and then they ditched me in Albuquerque.
oh my god,
They ditched you in Albuquerque?
Yeah, I don't know the whole story, like absolutely.
Clearly.
Like as far as like it was a 3-piece punk band, and it was an awesome tour. We were opening for Fear, Agent Orange, and DI.
Wow.
And Total Chaos was on that bill. They're like another Southern California punk band. And but we did this tour. We weren't getting along. That's a crazy story of why I got ditched. And I just
and it's just 3 of you guys, right?
it was 3 of us, and we had a merch kid. And
Now, were you guys traveling in a van?
van, hot summer.
But you were on tour with other guys, but they weren't all in the band. Though,
We
right?
all had this particular band. We had our own van.
Okay.
So we did the van tour, and long story short, we weren't getting along. I was probably being a brat at some point, and then and we played this New Mexico show. The next show was going to be in L.A., and I just was kind of like, all right, guys, we're not getting along, but I'll drive us. I'll get us to L.A. Then it's it. Then it's done. I'll help you guys find a drummer in L.A. and this and that. I was trying to be like diplomatic.
Yeah.
They weren't having it. So I had a friend from New Mexico at that show. I went in. We were playing a skate park, which was kind of cool. We played like on top of the ramps, which was super sick. And
right.
we, I went back. I was walking my friend to his car to say goodbye, and then I come back to the van, and all of my gear is just out in the parking lot,
Wow.
in the back of the van, and I was just like, "What's going on?" And that was kind of it.
Wow.
Yeah,
Brutal.
yeah.
Dude.
Hey, at least they didn't steal your gear.
I'm happy they didn't steal my gear. Yeah. Hey, thanks guys for not stealing my
Yeah.
gear.
Just,
It would have been
yeah,
better had
yeah,
you hauled it around and
It dropped off in L.A. for me. Come
yeah.
on. I mean,
Now you're not only you stuck here in New Mexico. Was it New Mexico you said?
It was Albuquerque.
Albuquerque,
Yeah.
New Mexico.
yeah.
But now you're stuck there with your drums.
Man.
It's also good to keep in touch with your old neighbors because my old neighbor, she moved to Albuquerque. So
like, "I'm
I was
moving
like,
in."
"Hey, I'm here. Like, let's
Here I
hang
am
out."
with my drums.
And so I went. I called her up, and she like, and her like boyfriend at that time. It's a crazy story, but he ended up driving me back to L.A. that night.
Wow.
It was awesome.
Cool.
Dude.
So that tour finishes.
Yeah, that tour finished.
Have
and then,
you never seen those guys?
Then I
again?
got a call.
Is that right?
Like
You've never seen them? The rest of those guys in that band, have you ever seen them since then?
never.
Come on out, guys. No,
Do you
I'm just
still
kidding.
owe them a knuckle sandwich or no?
I think at that time I would have. Now, for me, it's water under the bridge.
Yeah. In hindsight, you're probably like, if you admitted like maybe I was being a little bit of a brat or
It was
whatever
like the
was.
first tour, so you kind of just like
Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
that was like my first big tour. So you're just kind of you don't know what to expect, you don't know what to do, and don't know really how to act. And it was still pretty DIY. So I think yeah, whatever. So, but yeah, the Huntress guy called me, and that's kind of when I just started jamming with them, and they were doing a kind of like mini lineup change before their first album, and then we just started kind of playing around LA. We did like a West Coast tour for the first tour, and just a van and a trailer. That was awesome. I mean,
What
all
type
the
of
tours.
music was it?
Huntress is like, I would say more like traditional style heavy metal.
Okay.
So like heavy metal, more influenced by like Iron Maiden and Judas Priest and like King Diamond. It was like almost like at times King Diamond, but with a female singer.
Like the new wave British heavy metal.
Yeah. The new wave.
Yeah.
New.
Yeah. So
I guess that's what it was dubbed back then. Judas Priest, Iron Maiden. Like it's.
Oh yeah.
It was called the new wave of
Yeah,
British
yeah.
heavy
That's
metal.
totally new wave of British heavy metal.
Yeah.
So yeah, we were kind of like super inspired by that, and also just like the sort of DIY like underground scene, and just LA had like a pretty cool like underground metal scene, and just like if you could kind of find your niche, like it was awesome because people came and it was really
Oh,
cool.
yeah.
And we play all the venues like that band. Yeah, Huntress played almost every place in LA that I can think of. Palladium,
Whiskey. You had to have played there.
Yeah, I played there several times.
Yeah.
Super cool, kind of.
What's the Rainbow
Roxy.
Roxy? Yep.
Yeah.
What else do they have out there?
Oh, at that time there was the Key Club, Palladium,
Palladium.
the Fonda. Let me see. There was. Yeah, I mean, we would play like bars too, like 3 of Clubs on Vine in Santa Monica is a place that I think Huntress played their first show with me. I think I have a video of it somewhere, which is crazy. And then we would just, yeah, a lot of the major clubs we would play those when we did tours and stuff.
Yeah. So let's pause the story here.
Okay.
And because you were from here.
Yeah.
You ended up in LA playing all these clubs.
Yeah.
There are a lot of people here that want to do that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Obviously, times change and things are different and stuff. But if you had to give advice to anyone who's looking to do that and looking to at some point get hooked up with a band and like go out there and do it and do the tour and stuff, do you have any advice? Any things you learned the hard way that you don't want someone else to learn the hard way?
Other than having a girlfriend that was moving to LA.
Definitely find somebody who's moving to LA first.
That's it.
Yeah.
Don't be the first one.
And then have a
get that set up.
get a 1995 Acura Integra.
It's the only way you
you
can
drive?
Oh yeah, drove across country. That was awesome. The advice I'd give is just go, just do it. It's like anything, whether it's this podcast or teaching lessons or making drum videos or whatever, like for you to actually go and do it, like you're now in this tiny 1% of people that are actually doing it.
Yeah.
Because there's tons of people that are just out there saying, oh, I want to do that, or I want to do this, or I want to do that. And they don't ever do it. And so if you actually just start trying, like, you know, the first one is always going to be crappy. The first band you're in is going to suck. And, you know, just like when you're 15 years old, the first band we're in, you know, we're not all like child prodigies. You know what I mean? It's like you got to just hash it out and just get out to the woodshed.
Yeah.
You know, and I think when it comes, if anybody wanted to do it, just go. Figure it out. You know, live in your car, get a Planet Fitness membership. You know,
That's the hack, right? Did you have one?
I did not, because I
Okay.
didn't need to live in my car. But
Okay.
you know what I mean? So like just it's expensive. I think the same LA from even like 15, almost 20 years ago it's a lot different now in a lot of ways. But I think like if you can do some research, find somebody, go out and visit for a week, see if you even like it. But yeah, I definitely visited before I moved. So, you know, go out, just give it a shot. Just try.
Yeah, that's the difference. That's the difference between stuff that people say and stuff that people do. Mm-hmm. Execution.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, if you guys want to know about like the tours and stuff, so Huntress, like we recorded a 2-song EP that was, well, it's funny, we talk about Fake It Till You Make It. We build it as the singles for our album, but really we just went in and recorded 2 songs.
Yeah.
and
That's it.
and then we
It's all perception.
and then
That's
we
it.
made this music video, and then that was sort of like the premiere single of our upcoming album, which wasn't even being recorded yet. And then that single got us our record deal from this label in Austria called Napalm Records. And then so we signed to Napalm Records.
Is that after Napalm Death?
No, it's not. It should be. I don't really know where they got the name. I should have learned that. But I wish, because Napalm Death is sick.
I know.
But we like signed to this label, and then it was just like on after that. We had management, we had booking agents, and then we just started touring. Like, and it was just like relentless. The first US tour, here's a crazy story. The first US tour, we toured for a week, because tours always like to start on the East Coast, especially when you live in LA. So we toured for a week to like Baltimore, and then we did 3 weeks back to LA. And then our next tour, we finished, we played the Key Club in LA on a Wednesday night. And then, so they just announced that they're coming back. The New England Metal and Hardcore Fest is returning. I don't know if you guys know.
Yeah, that's awesome.
We were billed to play that Saturday morning at noon. And we were in LA. So we had 48 hours to drive across the country. So we finished the
way.
tour, and then the same night, like I went home, took a shower, didn't even unload the van or anything. We just hopped back in the van at midnight in Pasadena, drove straight, like only stopping for gas. We like timed it. It was really gnarly. Everybody who drove a full tank of gas. We stopped to get gas, switched drivers, was just so exhausted. It was a 50 or 56 hour drive straight. And we didn't even think we were going to make it. Woke up in a Walmart parking lot at like 4 a.m. the night before we were supposed to play. And we're like, whoa, we made it. So got up, never been more tired in my life. Talk about fast changeovers. I think the New England Metal Fest was at 5 to 10 minute changeovers.
Wow.
Including your breakable swap. It was so that was one of the worst shows I ever played, just because nothing was comfortable. And so, but yeah, that was crazy. And then we did another 3 or 4 weeks tour with that power metal band Dragon Force.
Wow.
Yeah. And we did that, and then that finished, I think, in LA again. So we did like the first tour we did was 7 or 8 weeks straight.
So you had management and agents and all that stuff. They were kind of like hooking all that up. And were you guys doing a headlining tour, or were you guys a supporting act on that tour?
We were mostly like always supporting, unless it was like our own thing. So if like a tour, if the Dragon Force tour started at the Gramercy in New York, then we would do like 5 dates on our way out and just kind of like warm up and that would be like our headlining shows. So just doing that.
Man, and that you basically jumped into that too. Like you did like some small, like it was basically
It was
like
crazy.
All right, you want to do this? Here you go. Here's
Yeah.
some life experience
Yeah.
right now,
So you did
and
the tour
a lot
first,
of it.
where it's like a do-it-yourself type of tour.
Yeah.
What's like the biggest difference between like the do-it-yourself? You guys booked every show, crammed in a van, trying to make it happen, and versus like okay, now you have a little bit of a back by some agents and management and a record company. I'm sure it's not a whole like.
It's
oh,
not
here's
like-
all the money in the world. Like, I'm
No.
sure it's not that.
Yeah, we were actually insanely lucky enough to have like tour support from our label at that time, which was still at that time even unheard of because labels, they're trying to make money back. They're not trying to give you money. But like, I would say the biggest difference because we were in a van the whole time. We did a couple of bus tours later on, but like. The biggest difference I would just say is as silly as it sounds is just your load in time. When you're doing your own sort of DIY headlining tour, you're probably not loading in at the earliest would be 6 or 7 o'clock. Whereas like when you're loading in for Danzig or Lamb of God, I think I did one of those Mayhem Fests. Like those, like some of those major tours when you see, what would be like the Fillmore in Philly or something like where King Diamond played that load in's probably 10 a.m. for those guys. And so we would just try to, that we didn't get many hotels because usually it was an 6 or 8 hour drive. So you finish playing a show, you load out, maybe it's 12 or 12:30. And then you're like, okay, well, we have 8 hours to drive to get to the next show. So we should try and drive a little bit tonight. So you're definitely not partying.
Yeah.
Right.
No, you're front loading it.
You're kind of partying, but you're not like doing it like people think that you are. You're
Yeah.
working really hard.
In the back of a tour bus, like
yeah,
girls everywhere.
yeah. No girls like heavy metal at that time. So we, but you would drive a couple hours and just pull off into a truck stop or Walmart parking lot. We would always just sleep in the van. I think we opened for Lamb of God twice and like on 2 different tours. And we, it was, all those tours were it was just, there were always like 8 hour drives. So we would just always sleep in the van for a few hours. Somebody would wake up at 6 a.m. and then we would drive another 6 hours, load in at 12. And then you finally get about your day,
Wow. Did you try to get up like some rest at that point? Like find a spot in the venue or back on the bus or the van just to crash a little bit then because you're so exhausted?
Yeah, I mean, you figure out how to. There's a Journey documentary from like 1983 called Frontiers and Beyond, and there's a clip of a guy sleeping on a roll of duct tape as a pillow, and sometimes that's what it felt
right,
like.
Yeah.
Now, actually, because you had mentioned the Walmart parking lot.
Yeah.
Any crazy Walmart parking lot stories? Like,
No, not really like
Okay.
crazy. We sometimes, so if there was another band like in a van or something, there was a couple times where we brought a barbecue with us and we would just buy some meats, buy some veg, and just sit in the parking lot and just kind of barbecue, eat dinner, and we kind of like. None of us were really into like fast food unless it was like the worst last resort on the planet. So we always kind of figured out ways around it. Another way is like if you plan on getting to the venue like at actual load-in time, I'd kind of look and be like, hey, there's a grocery store a mile away from this venue. Before we go, let's go there and actually buy groceries that we'll eat. And I know they don't have it here, but like Trader Joe's, was a thing, and they have all prepackaged stuff. It was so easy, and you're spending way less money than if you would.
fast food or getting like a McDonald's number 8 meal or
Yeah.
and it's just gonna weigh you down and make
Yeah,
you
Walmart's
unhealthy
were
anyway.
great for like brushing your teeth at 3 a.m.
Yeah,
That's about it.
and the parking lot.
And their parking lot, amazing, nice and bright with those lights to
Yeah.
sleep under.
I've just sitting there thinking I can imagine some people coming up to you or whatever because you can find some characters at the Walmart and at 3 o'clock in the morning. But
Yeah, surprisingly, I can't remember ever getting like messed with in the parking lot, and that's probably why we actually like early on, Jill, the singer, she was just like super babe. Like I think she was in Playboy or something at once, and she was like had a really like popular DJ night in LA. So like sleeping at people's houses and like, you know, as nice as people are to like offer their place to stay, I think by the second or third night of tour, we were just like, okay, that's done. Because really a lot of times, as you know, we didn't mind having a couple beers after a show and hanging out, but people want to just, they think that like this is their like Motley Crue moment where
yeah.
you're just like, all right, let's go all night. It's like, no, dude, we're like pumped to be sleeping in a building.
Right.
We want to sleep on your couch.
And now you're dealing with their schedules too. You don't know who else is coming or going.
Yeah, and then they
you're
turn
like-
on YouTube
Yeah.
at like 1 a.m. and they're like, oh, you got to watch this. And it's like, no, I just want to go to bed. The
Right.
one night I remember we were at somebody's house planning on staying there. And we did this a couple times. There was a time in Santa Cruz too where we bailed on this guy's house. It was just too gnarly. And but we were at this guy's house and they were really, really nice, but you could tell that they were kind of showing off and nobody wanted to like look stupid in front of the band, which is super dumb because we're all just nerds too.
Yeah, exactly.
And you know, it turned into like 3 a.m. and I think somebody came in and just was like, hey, you know, this was a total lie because we ended up just driving around the corner. But we're like, hey, we should actually just get on the road and drive. We got a long drive ahead of us because we were all just sitting on the couch. We all just wanted to sleep. And then we just hopped back in the van. I think drove 2 blocks away and parked there and slept overnight.
Got to do what you got to do. I hear you, man.
Absolutely.
When I'm tired, I'm ready for bed. And
Yeah.
I do not want to hear anything. Like, I don't want to hear any music. I don't want to hear the TV. It's like I'm ready for bed, and any little thing is just like, okay, I have to go remove myself, and I have to be somewhere where I can sleep.
Yeah, there were nights when we had places to stay, and I remember one night, I think we were in Toronto or Chicago or something, and Ian and I walked into this person's apartment. We're like, this is just cramped. Where were you going to go? There's cat hair everywhere. Like, him and I went back down to the van. It was cold, too, and we just kind of went back in the van and had a great night's sleep in the van. You really learned to sleep well in that van.
Yeah, you learn where all the comfort spots are.
Europe was different because those vans they don't have bench seats like they do here.
Shit.
So, well, it's just like their normal like Sprinter van. Those are just
Yeah.
like bucket seats.
So what was the difference touring here versus touring in Europe?
Life of luxury versus you know, being treated like a schmuck who's trying to steal your money or something like that. Like Europe, I feel like still has like an infrastructure, or they care about arts in a different way than the U.S. as far as like and like Lidditz here, Rock Lidditz or Mickey's Black Box is probably a good example of what it's like in Europe, where like you go to a venue in Europe, if you're there at 10 a.m., there's a full breakfast spread. There's staff that work at that venue. A lot of venues have their own in-house chefs and cooks. And so you go there and there's a full spread of food, cold cuts, bread, sandwiches, meats, cheeses, the whole thing. And that's just breakfast. And then, you know, and then dinner sometimes. I remember once we played in Portugal, dinner, they were like, no, you guys are coming to our restaurant down the street. And they had this restaurant closed for us in Lisbon for the whole band touring package. And we walked 2 blocks from this venue, and this family-owned restaurant just cooked for the whole entire crew. And that was awesome. There was a place in France where the catering was a double-decker bus. So like downstairs in the bus was the kitchen, and then upstairs was just all the seating. So you just like sat up there, and they were like, "Do you want a bottle of wine?" It's like, "Yeah, of course." And like, you know, here's 4 different options for dinner. You're like, "What?" Like, I can barely get a hummus plate, you know, if I'm playing in New York somewhere. Like, so like that kind of like hospitality, I think their sound
interesting.
is like is way better. Like they're just kind of, you can see that it's like still a big thing. Like they
What's
really
it like
care.
going from like country to country? You said you were in France and another country, like going between the different lines. Like, how does that work?
It's awesome. I mean, you get stamps usually at every thing, if you know, every border. But
Okay.
like when we were on the second tour we did was a 7-week tour of Europe with Dragon Force. So we toured with Dragon Force twice, and they were like, "Hey, come to Europe with us." And it was this 7-week tour, which was awesome because we went literally everywhere: Scandinavia, mainland Europe, And then I think in that tour was the first time we went to the UK. But like, I mean, you're just treated like such a baby. It's like, hey, you're on this bus, somebody's gonna drive you, and we only have a 2-hour drive because every city or country is so close together.
Yeah.
So you have to be on the bus by 4 a.m. And you're like, or 6 a.m. in some
Yeah.
of the cases, you're like, and then I just sit there and you drive me to the next place. Like,
Yeah.
it was,
That
it
beats
was,
50 hours cross country. Oh my
Yeah,
God.
it was
When
just
you're
like a
driving,
whole
taking turns.
whole different like world of just driving in a, I mean, there was a different like charm of driving yourself in the van and just like kind of being your own like renegade band and just doing everything you want to do when you want it, because the buses, they really don't stop at, you know, the 7-Eleven to snack up, you know.
Yeah.
So
you can make your choices. Going back to the first tour you were on, the do-it-yourself tour, you guys had the van. Was it a van you rented, or did you guys own it?
it was Blake had like just your classic was it conversion van where like the bed folded down in the back and there was
Yeah.
like 4 captain's chairs.
Cool.
And we towed a small trailer, and then the other band, we let them borrow the trailer for the rest of their tour. So the last part of that drive, we were all just in the captain's chairs because the van was just full of gear. And all the other tours were in like in the U.S. tours anyway, we were in a 15-passenger van. So the way it was set up for us, we all just had our own bench essentially, which was great.
And you just hauled the equipment in a trailer.
Had a trailer. It was a big move when we upgraded our trailer. We went from those tiny trailers to one
Yeah.
of the ones with the side door.
Nice.
Oh, yeah.
That was a huge leap.
You get your drums out very easily there.
Oh my
You don't
god,
have to,
it was awesome. Just had like our own mini dressing room in there.
Did you already? I mean, we shipped your drums out to California for
Yeah.
you. Did you have cases at that point, or did you? Have
Yeah,
to go to
I
cases?
still have them, and it's great company. SKB cases, not like endorsed, but like they were.
No,
they're-
you endorsed them. We talked about that in the podcast. Like, you know, drummers and artists and everything else have it backwards. Like,
Yeah.
they're like, oh, I'll endorse your stuff if you give it to me for free. No, you endorse SKB.
Yeah, they were
absolutely
awesome.
do.
So I had those cases, and I shipped everything in those cases in the boxes.
Yeah.
And at one point, the foam lining busted out on those cases. And I mean, I was still living in LA. I think it was right before I was going to move back to New Mexico. And I went down to the city of Orange and where SKB is. And I was like, hey, can you guys like reline this foam? They said you would do it. They just gave me a whole new set of cases.
Wow.
Like I went in with my old cases with my name
Awesome.
spray paint, and they were just like super messed up, and I just left with brand new cases.
Yeah. We used to have some rental hardware, and then Rick is a big proponent of the SKB cases, especially the SKB hardware cases, because they're long. You don't have to break down your hardware. Well, sometimes those clips will break, and they would always replace them
Yep.
for us for free.
Yep.
Rick and I were just talking about that. Or rental.
They replaced my rollerblade wheels on my hardware case. They just
Wow.
they're like, oh, those are broken. We'll send you a new one.
And then they upgraded their latches so they wouldn't break, or it was more difficult to break. And
Yeah.
they were retrofitted to fit those old brackets too, and they sent it to us for free. And yeah, so same
Yeah.
thing. So big shout out to them.
Absolutely.
They stand by their equipment.
So, you do all this touring.
Yeah.
This is where we turn into an infomercial for Lancaster.
Here it comes.
And you just couldn't resist good old Lancaster County, good old Lancaster City, and you moved back here. So, what did the transition look like as far as you're doing this touring life? Then you just moved back to LA for a while?
Yeah, essentially, we were like on the road pretty heavily for like 2 to 2.5 years. At that, I think the first year alone, we were on the road for like 220 days. The second year was like 180 or something like that. And the thing that everybody just wants to go see their favorite bands and not, and not care about what's happening behind the scenes, but like maintaining relationships, maintaining all that kind of stuff is like really difficult when you're
Absolutely.
like, hey, I'm going to leave for 4 months and you maintain, and I barely have 2 nickels to rub together. So I'll give you what I can for rent. And it's like, it just starts to really take its strain on you. And I think for me, there was a little bit of like, you're feeling like you're, the I don't know. The only way I can think of it is to say like you're the hot shit in town. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're like, I'm the new guy. Like, this is cool.
Yeah.
We're getting all this attention. I was just in the UK and I got my picture with Brian May from Queen, and I'm like living
Yeah.
on the highest life possible.
Yep, that's it.
And like, so, you know, I think there was a little bit of like ego just because I never had that before. And so I basically like one relationship ended, next one started, and she lived in New Mexico. And at the end of, we had done another crazy touring thing we did, the Rockstar Mayhem tour, whatever that was called, like several years back. They don't do it anymore, but it was like the new Ozfest at that time. It was like the summer metal tour, and we did that tour. Like Rob Zombie and Mastodon were playing, and like so it was just this monster tour, which was 5 weeks, and then we did another week that took us to Canada, and then we did 3 weeks right after that, and when we opened up for Danzig, and so like we were once again on the road for 9 weeks or something like that.
Yeah.
And that was also just to keep adding to it. Like at the beginning of that summer, we went to Europe for 2 or 2.5 weeks. We were home for like 5 or 7 days, and then we were gone for 8 weeks.
Quick
So
turnaround.
yeah, it just takes strains on relationships. So at the end of all that, I didn't have my LA place anymore. You know, my new girlfriend at that time was living in New Mexico, and I moved to New Mexico
Because of a woman?
because of a young lady.
Well,
Yes,
well.
my fiance now is gonna love listening to this when I'm just talking about my ex-girlfriend.
She won't make
boy.
it this far. She won't make it this
Yeah.
far. Come on, we talk about drums.
Hold
at
on.
the front.
Because you had mentioned being on tour with Danzig.
Yeah.
You weren't on tour when he got snuffed, were you?
No. He was awesome on that tour.
No, when that guy knocked him out, the
Yeah.
bouncer dude.
I'm well aware of,
Okay.
of that, but no, that was not.
Oh no,
that
I
tour.
love Danzig and I love the Misfits.
yeah.
So I'm like, I'm a huge fan.
No, that
But-
tour was awesome. I mean, not to say like we were real picky about music, but we were all very excited to do that tour because we were
Yeah.
all major Danzig fans and Misfits fans, obviously.
Yeah.
Cool. So you end up moving to New Mexico,
Ended up in New Mexico.
and you start playing bands there.
Yeah, I still did a couple more tours with Huntress, and then
Okay.
I think just in hindsight, and we all kind of had said it in some capacity, the band kind of fizzled out for me. We're just like super burned out. So like after doing all that touring, and you know, our singer Jill, she was like suffering from mental illness and stuff like that. So there was just some hard personalities to deal with, and it just kind of, for me, I was like, man, the thought of just like getting back in the van again right now for 9 weeks, like it like freaked me out. And that's kind of when I think I like mentally checked out, and then they called me and were like, hey, no. So that was kind of the end of it. But so I was in New Mexico for like 2.5 years. I don't know if I played any gigs. I might have. But then I moved back to LA for like 1.5 or 2 years. And then that relationship ended. And then I moved to Pennsylvania for 5 months. I moved back to Lancaster for 5 months with the plan of going back to New Mexico. This is a real boring story.
No,
but,
I'm digging it, dude.
yeah, I was
No,
gone.
we're here for the journey,
Yeah,
man. We
I
started
know.
at the beginning. We are here for the
Yeah.
journey.
So yeah,
I didn't know you bounced around that much. So it's like, dude, I've never really done anything like that. So
the place I live now in Lancaster is the place it's the longest place I've lived in the last like 15 years, I think, or maybe 10 years. But yeah, so I briefly moved back here. I kind of was just like, I'm done with LA in the September of 2017, I think it was. And I initially was kind of like trying to figure out how to make it work and asking around, where can I go? Where can I stay? Where can I move? And then I was just kind of like, the light bulb went off, you know? And
Yeah.
I was like, wait a minute, like, I want to move back to New Mexico. I really liked it there. So I was like, I'm just going to go move to the East Coast. I'll throw my stuff in storage in New Mexico. And I haven't had a holiday with my family in 10 years at that time. So, on a capacity of actually just being there versus like, I'm coming in,
Yeah,
on the
absolutely.
8th of January when everybody's tired of Christmas that's my family
Yeah.
time. So like, I just kind of came back for 5 or 6 months, and then in February of 2018, moved back to New Mexico. And then, yeah, once again there, I kind of just called initially, like, always really important, find a place to play drums. So
Yes.
I like moved to New Mexico and I called these guys that had a band room, and I was like, I just want a corner. Can I just rent a corner from you guys? And they were like, yes. And then, of course, that led to like me playing in their band for 2 years, and that was a band called Russian Girlfriends, and we released an EP like in January of 2022, which is I think it's really cool. But yeah, we did that EP, and then, but yeah, I was in New Mexico for like 2 to 2.5 years again.
Albuquerque.
Albuquerque, yes. Yeah, I lived in Albuquerque and I worked in Santa Fe, just kind of doing restaurant gig work. And
Did you get to do the Breaking Bad tour?
oh, dude, the last place I lived was 2 blocks away from Jesse Pinkman's parents' house.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I just
Wow.
would walk our dogs past there every day.
Well, yeah, and like I've seen YouTube videos where they do like, the tour of like where they filmed, and a lot of the locations are pretty close together.
Yeah,
It's like that car wash is right around the corner from there as well.
it's all right there. It's crazy that city has that much attention just from that one show, but it's
Yeah.
all there. It's really cool.
Nice.
So yeah, I lived in New Mex and then played. The Russian Girlfriends was kind of like a rock / kind of punk band, and then we did our own little tours. We went to Texas, on like a 5-day or a week tour. We used to go up to Wyoming a couple times. That was always really cool to just kind of go north, and then
Big wide open spaces.
oh my god, it's insane. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, we did that, and then it was just kind of I hadn't had the feeling in a long time, but I was just kind of like, would come back to visit. You kind of see Lancaster grow and grow and grow,
Yeah,
and little piece
absolutely.
by piece.
Evolve.
Like, wait a minute, that's actually like a cool restaurant now. That was literally a shell of a building like the last time I was here. So you would just see all this new stuff being built and like a sort of city coming together. And of course, right before I moved back, the Chameleon closed down forever. But so like I started getting this feeling again of like, man, should I move back to the East Coast? I kind of miss being near my family. And then in 2020, the beginning of that year, that's actually when I asked my now fiance. I was like, "Hey, do you ever think about moving back to the East Coast?"
Where's she from originally?
She's from Detroit.
Okay.
Yeah, she's originally from Detroit, and then she moved to New York when she was like 17 to go to fashion school at FIT, and then she was making shoes in New York, and then I met her in New Mexico. She was apprenticing there with this lady who was a 4th-generation cowboy boot maker. So she was learning how to make cowboy boots.
Wow.
At that time when I met her.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And then so she kind of, when we first met, we were both like she was about to move to New York. I was about to move to Santa Fe. And then we were like, oh, wait, no, this is awesome. So we both squashed those ideas immediately. And then, so 2020, and we're just sitting there twiddling our thumbs, and I'm just, diving into drum recording and making videos.
yeah.
And then we were just like, let's go. Let's move back.
That's
we
great.
decided.
Well, dude, we're
we
glad
did
to
it.
have you back, man.
Thanks.
Has she
It's a
ever
journey.
been to Lancaster before?
No.
Or did she just go in cold turkey?
We came for my friend Bruce's wedding. So Bruce Yule. We
yeah.
went to his wedding, and that was the first time she had ever been in Lancaster. And then we were only here for like 4 or 5 days, and we kind of settled on moving to Lancaster. She really wanted to move to Philly, and I just was like, if I move to Philly, I might as well still be living in LA as far as how often I'll see my family. So,
Right.
And that's when we moved back here.
That's rad.
Yeah.
So you're here, you're playing, you're an artist, you're teaching too?
Yeah, I have a studio in downtown Lang, right by ABAG, and it's the coolest studio I've ever had. In LA, like, I had a studio, and I would pay $300 or $350 a month just to rent a corner to where I would have to break down and set up my drums every time.
Oh my
So
gosh.
now I have my own room, which is, at times twice as big as some of the rooms I had in LA. And I have my kit there. I do drum videos and make recordings, and I teach lessons.
The studio that you have, is it on Liberty Street?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the tie-in, because you said that you hear me drumming, and I'm like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Actually, by my house all the time. How do you know where I live too? Number one,
I put two and two together.
You're like, wait a
how
minute.
do you know where I live? But you may have seen me out on the porch or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know, but yeah, okay. I've been in that studio, or one of the studios already, but I know a lot of people that have studios down there.
Yeah, the one death metal band from Lancaster.
Yeah,
They play
March to Victory.
They're next door. There's a guy with a gym down there,
Yeah.
and then
cool.
I feel bad that I always forget his name, but he's in like all of the like pub rock bands, and he's another great drummer.
Paul Murr has a studio there.
Oh, maybe it's Paul.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. He used to work at drums and teach there too.
yeah.
Yeah, we gotta have Paul on the show.
Yep.
Gotta have him on
He
the
has a
show.
studio there.
But that's rad. So you're teaching, and then also we were talking about Zootropolis.
Yep. And
As
I work
well.
at Zootropolis. I manage there sometimes.
Zootropolis, back up. It's Zootropolis.
Zo.
I've been saying zoo.
No, don't say zoo.
All right.
So
I retract it. So let's do it again. So yeah, and you're working down at Zootropolis.
Yeah, 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 absolutely. Edit that out. So,
Yeah.
I work there, just serving, bartending. Kind of do that a couple days, and then I teach a couple days.
That's great.
And I make silly drum videos where I goof off with editing and stuff, and just kind of.
No, dude, I was checking them out. It looks and sounds great.
Oh, thanks,
You have a
man.
great sound. Like your drums, they're saying, I'm like, oh man, maybe I need a Star Classic. That's why I brought that up. I was like, oh man, those drums sound good,
Yeah.
man. They sound
Yeah.
so good.
I know. I always argue of like, I should get a new one, and then I'm like, no, these sound really good.
Right,
So
yeah.
I still really like that drum set a lot.
Yeah,
And that's the one I toured everywhere with.
if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
I don't need to fix that drum set, except for the things I need.
However,
to
if
fix.
you do want to fix it,
yeah,
you know,
Come to Drums Etc.
come to drums.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
No, but that's awesome. Thanks. I think there's so many people who will find value in just hearing about your journey and like what you did, and like potentially get ideas about how they could do it. Especially because there's a lot of people from the East Coast that are like, yeah, there's the West Coast thing, and like
Yeah.
there's a lot happening out there, but you don't really know much of it. But you prepared, you planned, you knew someone out there, so you had an anchor, a spot to land.
Always start seeing somebody first.
And then you, yeah, exactly. And then you decided to actually, you didn't decide that you wanted to do it, you actually did it. There's that execution phase. That's awesome.
Yeah, just go do it. Just try it, because like, I mean, think if you have the idea that you want to do it or you want to try and do it, like, are we all going to be sitting in our deathbed and being like, I'm glad I didn't go. I'm glad I didn't try that thing.
Yep.
Like, just go do it. At least you tried. Like, if you try and it fails, that's totally fine. Just go.
Okay, before we kind of wrap it up here, when you were in a few days ago, you briefly mentioned the Metallica album Death Magnetic, and you had a story behind that, and we didn't get to that. And I'd like to hear the story behind that and the engineer, if you can share it. If there's
Oh
something
yeah,
you can
the
share.
engineer. It's not that exciting,
Okay.
but the engineer who was the guy who was in the band that ditched me in New Mexico, he worked at Sound City in L.A.
Okay, famous recording studio in L.A.
Yeah, and he
Absolutely.
was an engineer or just worked in the studio when they were recording that album.
Okay,
And he just said the Metallica dudes were super awesome, and they would,
Nice.
splurge and buy everybody crazy expensive lunches every day, and
That's how you win. That's how you win people over.
yeah.
That's right.
I was telling Sean,
And beer.
if someone, we had a customer graciously hook us up, Mel, the other day and buy us a pizza, and I'm like,
Right.
dude, you're in. That's
Yeah.
it. You bought us a pizza,
Yeah.
and then our one rep sent us some free T-shirts. And we're like, that's it.
Yeah.
That's
awesome.
it. We're very simple
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
Yeah, a $7 pizza goes a long way.
Heck
Absolutely. Take care of your people that you go to all the time. Not necessarily just drumming, but like in everything. Show some appreciation. It really does
Yeah.
go a long way.
If you're asking your friends to help you move, have pizza and beer at that place.
For sure.
That's
And
it. That's
I'll help that
payment
guy move
assured.
a lot.
Yep, that means a lot.
Cool. Well, unless you guys have anything else to add, I think we can close our.
I don't think
Dude,
so.
that was rad.
Dude,
Thanks.
Thank you so much for being here.
Oh,
I know
absolutely.
there's so much more to that.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That's
But
like
just hearing
tip
about
of the
you
iceberg.
doing it, going out there, moving, and life on the road, and the different styles of tours, and I just loved it.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
It was fun while it lasted.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys for checking out, tuning in to Drum Key. If you want to contribute to the show, we've got that Discord that I mentioned earlier. Pop in the comments. Reach out to us anywhere that you see Drum Key or drums, etc. You will get to Sean and I. We're very easy to find. By all means, please support your local drum shops. If you don't have one, we'd be happy to adopt you into our family. But thanks for tuning in, and have a good one.